Zayden Locke hadn't meant to spill coffee on his only ironed shirt, but with a 6-year-old daughter who insisted on wearing sparkly unicorn boots to school, chaos came with the morning routine. "Madeline, we're already late," he groaned, trying to blot the stain with a napkin as they rushed toward the school's front doors. "I told you sparkly boots make me faster," she declared, skipping ahead of him. His stomach sank when he saw the sign outside the classroom. "Parent-teacher meeting today." "Great." Madeline's teacher, a kind woman named MS. Greer, waved them in. "We're just getting started. Please come in." Zayden tugged at his wrinkled collar and guided Madeline to the row of tiny chairs. The classroom was filled with other parents, some in suits, some in yoga gear, and then her. She sat alone in the corner, legs crossed, eyes focused on a paper in her hands. Her dark hair was pulled into a sleek twist, and she wore a fitted navy coat over a cream blouse that looked like it cost more than his monthly rent. As he passed her to sit down, she looked up and smiled. It wasn't the polite kind of smile people gave out of obligation. It was warm, curious, real. Madeline leaned over and whispered way too loudly, "That's Michael's mom. He says she makes him pancakes shaped like spaceships." The woman chuckled softly, "Guilty." Zayden cleared his throat and extended a hand. Zayden Locke, Madeline's dad, sorry about the mess coffee war." "Brielle Vaughn," she replied, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you, Zayden." Her hand was smooth, her grip gentle but confident. Something about her voice made him pause, calm but not distant, friendly but not fake. MS. Greer began speaking about reading progress and upcoming field trips, but Zayden barely heard any of it. He was too busy wondering why a woman like Brielle Vaughn was sitting in a public school classroom like the rest of them. After the meeting, parents lingered, chatting. Brielle approached him, while Madeline and Michael compared drawings. "Madeline's very bright. Michael talks about her all the time," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "She's obsessed with dinosaurs and glitter. It's a dangerous combination." Brielle laughed, and he couldn't help but notice the way her eyes crinkled, like she wasn't used to laughing that hard, but enjoyed it when she did. "Listen," she said, glancing toward the kids, "I know this might sound forward, but would you and Madeline like to join us for lunch? There's this little Italian place a few blocks away. Kid-friendly. And I've got a soft spot for girls in sparkly boots." Zayden blinked. "You sure? I mean, we're kind of a hot mess." "Hot messes make the best lunch dates," she said, smiling again. They ended up at a cozy restaurant with red checkered tablecloths and crayons on the menu. The kids shared a pizza and made a mess. Zayden accidentally knocked over a water glass. Brielle didn't flinch. He expected her to be on her phone, checking schedules or emailing assistants or whatever it was stylish women in expensive blouses did. But she was fully present, laughing, talking, asking him questions about his work. "I'm a mechanic," he said, wiping sauce off Madeline's cheek. "Own a little shop near the edge of town, mostly old trucks and stubborn engines." "I love old trucks," she said, and something about the way she said it made him wonder if she really meant it. He gave her a look. "You don't have to impress me. I know I've got grease under my fingernails." "I'm not trying to impress you, Zayden," she said simply. Later, as they walked out of the restaurant and the kids skipped ahead, he turned to her. "Thanks for lunch. I don't usually get invited to places like this." She glanced at him, head tilted. "You mean restaurants?" He laughed. "I mean, normal adult conversations. I work, I parent, that's the loop." "Well," she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out a small notebook, "I'd like to break the loop once in a while, if you're up for another lunch sometime." She tore off a page and handed it to him. Her name and number were written in neat, looping handwriting. Zayden stared at it, surprised. "Are you always this direct?" Only when I want to be, she said with a wink before walking off to catch up with Michael. Madeline tugged his hand. Can we play with them again? He watched Brielle as she held her son's hand, smiling down at him. Yeah, Zayden murmured. I think we can. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have guessed, was that Brielle Vaughn wasn't just a stylish single mom. She wasn't just charming and warm and real. She was one of the most powerful women in the state, CEO of Vaughn Enterprises, a billionaire. And she had just fallen a little bit in love with a poor mechanic dad who had no idea who she really was. Zayden wiped his hands on a rag, the scent of motor oil lingering in the air as he stepped out of the service bay. The afternoon sun glinted off the hood of a restored '67 Mustang parked near the office. He checked his watch, only an hour until school pickup. His phone buzzed on the counter. Hey, Lucas, he said, answering as he walked toward the back. You working miracles on that rust bucket again? Lucas's voice crackled through the speaker. It's got character, Zayden replied. What's up? Just reminding you this weekend's the fundraiser at the community center. You still bringing Madeline? Zayden rubbed the back of his neck. Yes, she's been talking about the art booth for days. I'll be there. Lucas paused. You still seeing that woman from the school? Zayden hesitated. We had lunch once. She gave me her number. Fancy coat lady. Zayden laughed under his breath. Yeah. You gonna call her, or what? He glanced toward the door. I don't know, she's different. Different how? I can't pin her. She doesn't talk like she's from around here, but she knew the menu at that Italian place better than I did. And she listens. Like, really listens. Lucas whistled. Sounds like trouble. Maybe the good kind, Zayden muttered before hanging up. That evening, while Madeline drew dragons on the kitchen tiles with chalk, Zayden found the note Brielle had given him tucked inside his wallet. He stared at the smooth curve of her handwriting, then picked up the landline and dialed. Hello. Her voice was soft but alert. Hey, it's Zayden from the school. There was a pause. Zayden, I was wondering if you'd call. He cleared his throat. I hope it's not too late. No, I just finished helping Michael with a project on the solar system. I now know more about Saturn's rings than any adult should. He chuckled. Madeline's in a chalk war. My floor may never recover. I admire your bravery. He leaned against the wall. Listen, there's this fundraiser on Saturday, community thing. They've got crafts and music and all that. Thought you and Michael might want to come. She didn't answer immediately. I'd like that, she said finally. What time? Starts at 10. We usually go early, beat the crowd. I'll be there. Saturday arrived with crisp air and the scent of cinnamon from the bake sale tables. Zayden spotted Brielle near the entrance, her hands tucked into the pockets of a soft gray coat. Michael stood beside her, holding a paper kite. You made it, Zayden said, approaching with Madeline. We wouldn't miss it, Brielle replied, glancing around. This place is charming. It's chaotic, he said, watching a toddler run past holding a glitter-covered pinecone. That too, she said, laughing. The kids darted off toward the craft stations, while Zayden and Brielle wandered past booths decorated with streamers and hand-painted signs. She paused at a table selling garden herbs. Do you cook? He asked. When I don't burn things, she said, but I try. You don't strike me as the apron type. She tilted her head. What type do I strike you as? He hesitated. Honestly, I can't figure you out. Good, she said, picking up a jar of honey. Mystery keeps things interesting. They passed the stage where a local band played acoustic covers. Brielle stopped. Do you dance? She asked, brushing a strand of hair away from her cheek. I work 14-hour days under leaking trucks. My back protests at the idea. You're no fun. You say that, but you haven't seen my two-step. She laughed, then leaned in slightly. I like this. What, the music? This, the noise, the people. Watching kids dart around like they own the place. It's not something I see often. Zayden looked at her. Where do you usually go? She didn't answer right away. Places like this don't usually make the itinerary, but I think they should. Later, while the kids glued popsicle sticks into questionable shapes, Brielle sat beside him on a bench near the basketball court. Why haven't you asked me what to do? She asked suddenly. He shrugged, didn't think it mattered. Most people ask within 5 minutes. I'm not most people. No, she said, watching him, you're not. He glanced at her. You want to tell me? Not yet, she said. Is that all right? Yeah, he said after a moment. It is. Michael ran up, holding a plastic trophy. They gave him Best Rocket Ship, she said, her eyes lighting up as she took it from him. Zayden smiled. Looks like your pancakes are fueling his imagination. She gave him a look, but her expression softened. You're good with her, she said, nodding toward Madeline. Really good. She's all I got. I don't always get it right, but I try. You're doing better than most. They walked back toward the parking lot slowly, the sun dipping lower. Would you want to do this again? Brielle asked, stopping at her car. Zayden nodded. Yeah, I would. She opened the door, paused, then looked at him. I'm not always simple, Zayden. My life comes with complications. Then I'll bring a toolbox, he replied. Her smile faltered for a second, like something inside her cracked open just a little. I'll see you soon, she said, climbing into the car. As he watched her pull away in a sleek black SUV that didn't match the rest of the parking lot, something tightened in his chest. He didn't know what secrets she was hiding. But he knew she made him want to figure them out. Rain slid down the windshield in slow streaks as Zayden waited outside the museum's side entrance, Madeline humming quietly in the back seat while clutching her handmade paper crown. The weekend children's exhibit had been her idea, glitter dragons, and all but the invitation hadn't come from her this time. Brielle had called the night before, asking if they'd like to join her and Michael for the special preview. The museum was opening early for select families. Zayden had chuckled at the phrase. Didn't know museums had VIP hours. They do when the board chair makes a call, she'd replied, her voice as casual as if she were offering him a sandwich. Now, standing beneath a wide awning, he watched as a silver sedan pulled up. A man in a black coat stepped out first, opening the rear door before Brielle emerged in slim trousers and a soft blue sweater that clung to her like it had been tailored to her shoulders. Michael followed behind, dragging a red umbrella behind him like a sword. Wow, Madeline whispered. She looks like a superhero. Zayden wasn't sure if she meant Brielle or the car, but she wasn't wrong either way. Inside, the museum was empty except for a few families and staff members wearing matching badges. The lights shimmered off marble floors and massive glass panels as they entered the exhibit. Dinosaurs, dragons, and planets mingled in an explosion of color and whimsy. Brielle leaned toward him as the kids ran ahead. Hope this isn't too much. You mean the private museum tour? Zayden said, glancing around at the polished display cases and interactive screens. It's unexpected. I can tone things down. He looked at her. Don't. They stood near a display of mythical creatures, watching the kids laugh as they built cardboard castles. Were you always this good at pretending to be ordinary? He asked without looking at her. Her fingers brushed the edge of a nearby sculpture. I stopped pretending a long time ago, but I've learned when to be quiet about certain things. Like the fact that you sit on museum boards. She let out a soft breath and run a company. He turned to her, eyebrows raised. What kind of company? Vaughn Enterprises. He blinked. Wait, Vaughn, as in the name on half the buildings downtown. She nodded once. Zayden stared at her stunned. I thought you were joking. I usually am, she said, folding her arms, but not about this. He stepped back slightly, as if needing a better angle to process what he was seeing. I fix engines in a garage that floods when it rains. You're the reason half this city exists. You're still the same man who helped his daughter glue pipe cleaners into a dinosaur crown, she said softly. That's why I called. He shook his head. That's a hell of a gap to cross. Brielle tucked her hands into her coat pockets. I didn't expect this would happen either. You mean us? She nodded. You didn't ask me what I did. You didn't try to guess how much money I had or what kind of house I lived in. You talked to me like I was just Brielle. I didn't want to lose that. Zayden exhaled slowly. You could have told me. I wanted to, but I also wanted to know if you'd still want me if I wasn't a Vaughn. He looked at her for a long time. I don't know what this is yet, but it's not about your last name. She took a step closer. Then let's figure it out, one museum exhibit at a time. Their conversation was interrupted by Madeline and Michael, both breathless with excitement. Dad, they have a dragon made of Legos, Madeline squealed. Can we build one? Michael added. Zayden glanced at Brielle. You ready to raise a pair of architects? I've already emailed the admissions director at MIT, she said with a grin. They followed the kids through the rest of the exhibit, their hands brushing once, then again, before Brielle's fingers laced into his. It wasn't forced. It wasn't dramatic. It just was. Afterward, they walked out into the clearing afternoon. Zayden opened his truck door for Madeline, then turned back to Brielle. She leaned against her car, arms crossed lightly, watching him. I want to know what your world looks like, she said. The real one, the garage, the late nights, the busted trucks, all of it. He studied her for a moment. You sure it won't ruin your shoes? I'll wear boots. You have boots. I have everything. He laughed. All right then, tomorrow. She nodded. Tomorrow. As he climbed into the truck, Madeline leaned over from the back seat. Is she gonna come over sometime? Zayden glanced in the mirror, catching a glimpse of Brielle waving to them in the rear view. Yeah, he said, I think she will. Zayden pulled the rolling garage door up and motioned Brielle inside, the clang of metal echoing through the wide space. The scent of rubber, gasoline, and old leather hung in the air. She stepped in carefully, eyeing the scattered tools and the half-gutted Ford pickup on the lift. It's messier than a museum, he said, tossing a wrench onto a rag-covered bench. It smells like high school shop class and nostalgia, she replied, running her fingers across the edge of her rusted hood. I like it. He glanced at her. You don't have to pretend this is charming. I'm not pretending, she said, turning to face him. You built this, it's yours, that matters. She wore black jeans and a denim jacket, both dusted with the fine layer of road grit from the drive. Her heels were gone, replaced by scuffed boots that looked like they hadn't seen daylight in years. He didn't ask if they were new, he already knew they weren't. He handed her a pair of safety glasses. If you're going to hang around, you're going to learn how to bleed break lines. She raised an eyebrow. Is that a threat or a promise? Just don't sue me if you ruin your manicure. I haven't had a manicure in months, she replied, gripping the wrench he handed her with more confidence than he expected. They worked in tandem, him guiding her hands, her asking pointed questions not just about the car's parts, but about the business. How he kept it running, how he handled late invoices, what he would do if he had more space. "You ever think about expanding?" she asked as she wiped grease from her fingers with a nearby towel. "Every day," he admitted, "but I've got one bay, two hands, and no investors knocking." She leaned against the bench, her gaze steady. "That could change." He met her eyes. "You offering me money?" "I'm offering a conversation," she said. "One where you tell me what you'd build if nothing held you back." "I don't want a handout." "I'm not in the habit of handing things out," she said. "I invest in people who don't know how to quit." Zayden didn't respond right away. He turned to the truck, tightening a bolt until the silence stretched long between them. "You really see something in this place?" he asked finally. "I see something in you," she said, "and I want to be part of it." Later that night, after Madeline and Michael had fallen asleep on a blanket fort built in Zayden's living room, he poured 2 mugs of coffee and handed one to Brielle. "I haven't had a quiet night like this in years," she said, curling her fingers around the mug. "You live in a penthouse, don't you?" he asked. "Yes, with floor-to-ceiling windows, curated art, and a wine fridge, barely use." "Sounds like a dream." "It's a cage," she said simply. "A beautiful one, but still a cage." Zayden leaned back, watching the flicker of the lamp reflect in her eyes. "You ever want out?" "All the time," she said. "But then I think about Michael, about the legacy I'm supposed to build, and I wonder if wanting something simpler is selfish." He shook his head. "Wanting something real isn't selfish." She looked down at her mug. "I've never introduced anyone to him before, not like this." "You mean the blanket fort and chocolate milk?" he asked, trying to lift the weight from her voice. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I mean someone who might stay." Zayden didn't answer right away. He reached across the space between them and took her hand. "I didn't expect any of this," he said. "Not you, not feeling like this. But I'm not walking away just because you've got a different zip code." Her fingers tightened around his. The next morning, they took the kids to the community gardens. Madeline picked sunflowers taller than herself, while Michael chased butterflies with a net made of mesh and a broken hanger. The sun was warm, the air thick with the hum of bees and laughter. Brielle knelt beside Zayden near the tomato beds, brushing dirt from her knees. "I had a meeting scheduled this morning," she said, "with a venture group in Chicago. I canceled it." He looked up. "Why?" "Because I'd rather be here, with you." That night, as the sun dipped low and the kids painted sidewalk chalk murals across the driveway, Zayden stood on the porch steps, watching Brielle laugh as Michael tried to draw a spaceship with a crown. She caught his gaze and walked over. "What?" "Come here," he said. She stepped into the space between his arms, her palms resting against his chest. "I never thought I'd fall in love at a parent-teacher meeting," he said. "I never thought I'd find home in a garage," she whispered. He kissed her then, not tentative, not cautious. It was full and deep, the kind of kiss that made promises without needing words. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I don't care about your money," he said. "I know. I just want you." She smiled, soft and certain. "Then you have me." The next month, Zayden's shop opened a second bay paid for not by a loan, but by a partner. Not silent, not distant, but present, every day. The Vaughn name never appeared on the building. Instead, the sign remained simple: Locke Motors. But anyone who walked through the doors could feel it, the change, the hum of hope in the walls, the quiet power of 2 people who built something together. And just beyond the office, taped to the back of the filing cabinet, hung a crayon drawing. 4 stick figures under a paper sun, standing in front of a lopsided house with hearts for windows. A mechanic, a billionaire, a girl with sparkly boots, and a boy with pancakes shaped like spaceships. Family in every way that mattered. The spring gala at the Fairmont Hotel was the kind of event Zayden used to drive past without a second glance. Valets in tuxedos, women in sweeping gowns, and champagne served on silver trays. But tonight, he was walking through the gilded doors with a woman whose world once felt galaxies away from his. Brielle's arm wrapped through his as they entered the grand ballroom, where crystal chandeliers glittered above tables draped in navy silk. A string quartet played near the fountain's centerpiece, and every guest carried themselves like they belonged because they did. Zayden tugged at the collar of his tailored jacket. "You sure they're not going to ask me to leave once they realize I'm not one of the stockbrokers?" "You're wearing cufflinks," Brielle said, gently adjusting them. "You're already more qualified than half the room." He glanced around. "I feel like I should be fixing someone's alternator just to balance out the universe." She leaned in. "You're here because you're part of my life, and you're staying because you belong in it." Across the room, a sharply dressed man approached, his smile polite but measured. "Brielle, didn't expect to see you tonight." Zayden noticed her spine straighten slightly. "Elliot, always a pleasure." The man's eyes flicked to Zayden. "And this is?" "Zayden Locke," she said, "my partner." Elliot extended a hand. "In business or?" "In everything," Brielle said, her tone final. Zayden shook the man's hand firmly. "Nice to meet you." As Elliot drifted away, Brielle exhaled slowly. "Friend of yours?" Zayden asked. "Board member," she replied. "Used to think I'd marry him someday." Zayden raised an eyebrow, but didn't joke. "I didn't," she added, "because I never looked at him and saw the rest of my life in his eyes." He didn't respond. He just took her hand and brought it to his lips. Before the speeches began, they found their table near the front. Zayden pulled out her chair before seating himself, a gesture that earned a few surprised glances from neighboring guests. The keynote speaker, a woman from a nonprofit Brielle had recently backed, took the stage and spoke about building futures in forgotten neighborhoods. Zayden listened quietly, watching Brielle nod along. She didn't just attend these events, she absorbed every word. When the applause ended, Brielle turned to him. "I want to tell you something." "I'm listening." "I've accepted a proposal to step back from Vaughn Enterprises." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I'm still on the board, still involved, but I'm no longer CEO." Zayden leaned in. "Why?" "Because I want to live a life that includes more school pickups, shared dinners, and fixing garden fences. I want to help you grow Locke Motors, and I want space to build something that's ours, not just mine." He stared at her. "You're serious?" "I've already signed the papers." He shook his head, stunned. "You gave it all up." "I didn't give it up. I made room for something better." Just then, the MC returned to the stage and announced that Brielle would be honored for her years of leadership. A hush fell over the room. "Go," Zayden whispered. But instead of walking toward the stage, Brielle stood and turned toward the crowd. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying clear and steady. "But I'd like to decline the spotlight tonight. The truth is, I've spent years chasing titles and accolades. What I'm proudest of now isn't a number on a ledger. It's the life I'm choosing to build with the people who know me beyond the headlines." She turned slightly, her gaze resting on Zayden. "I am stepping down, yes, not because I've lost passion, but because I've gained clarity. I want love. I want roots. I want a life that feels like mine." Applause swelled, but Zayden barely heard it. He was already standing, one hand extended. She took it without hesitation. Outside, beneath the marble columns, their driver waited with the car, but neither of them moved toward it. "I've never left something behind and felt so free," Brielle murmured. Zayden pulled her close. You didn't leave anything, you just made space for more. She looked up at him. There's one more thing. He tilted his head. I bought the building next to your shop. His brows lifted. You what? It's going to be a community garage. Training programs, apprenticeships, scholarships. You'll run it. I'll fund it together. He stared at her stunned. You really believe in this? I believe in you. He kissed her then, long and slow, with the city lights glowing behind them. The kind of kiss that didn't ask for anything, because everything had already been given. 3 months later, Locke Motors' community garage opened its doors beside the original shop. A massive mural, painted by local artists and students, stretched along the brick wall. It read, "Built by hand, driven by heart." Inside, Zayden taught classes to teenagers learning their first oil change. Brielle handled the grant paperwork and managed the partnerships, her heels traded for canvas sneakers dusted with chalk from the mural. Michael and Madeline shared a desk in the back office, working on their invention journal, which included a solar-powered popsicle cooler and a car that ran on bubblegum. Some nights they ate at the picnic table in the alley between the garages, with string lights overhead and music playing from the shop radio. Other nights, they curled up in their shared home, the kids asleep upstairs, and spoke quietly about what came next. They didn't rush anything, not the wedding, not the expansion, not the dreams. But eventually, on a warm autumn afternoon, with leaves swirling around the front stoop and the kids tossing flower petals from a basket, Zayden stood in a navy suit, waiting. Brielle stepped out of the house in a simple ivory dress that caught the light just right. You look nervous, she whispered as she reached him. I'm not, he said. I'm ready. They exchanged vows in the backyard between the tomato beds and the wild sunflowers. There were no reporters, no board members, just neighbors, friends, and 2 kids who knew what love looked like because they'd grown up watching it bloom. When they kissed, it wasn't a beginning or an ending. It was the middle of something good, something lasting, something real. And they never stopped building, together,